That state's witness will also testify that Marquise Conway was one of the individuals responsible for a portion of that payment.
I mean, you came out with these tracking designer records, and what's the latest one that's out right now that's going crazy?
That's on me.
That's on me going crazy. What, like 500,000? What, like a month?
Nah, shit. Right now it says 700,000.
7.
Dallas hip-hop always had its tension, but when Mo3 got chased down and shot on I-35 in broad daylight, the whole city froze in disbelief. Nobody could have imagined the wave of secrets that would start spilling out after that moment. And now 5 years later, prosecutors are claiming something wild, that Yella Beezy walked into a bank and pulled out $100,000 in straight cash right after the murder, all caught on camera, like a scene from a crime documentary. Dallas wasn't even ready for how deep this was about to go. That Wednesday in 2020 was supposed to be just another day, the sun beating down over the city. Traffic crawling, 9-to-5 workers pushing through shifts, truckers making deliveries, regular folks trying to stay focused and make it home. But within minutes, that calm turned into pure chaos. A freeway turned into a battlefield. A beef that had been bubbling under the surface finally exploded into violence that would shake the entire rap scene.
When Yella Beezy got shot up, what were your thoughts about that?
I gotta stay out the way.
Okay.
Out here, shit. Getting hit up every day out here, like.
This wasn't just a disagreement or a diss-record situation. This was a street rivalry between two artists who were respected, who stood on their blocks, who moved with real loyalty, and who carried that mix of ambition and neighborhood pride everywhere they went. The type of pride that can put pressure on someone until the smallest situation turns into a life-changing decision. One man ended up stretched out on the concrete, and another man found himself staring at charges that could lock him away for the rest of his life. This was no regular Dallas drama. This was a tragedy waiting to happen. But to really understand how things got so heated, you gotta go back before the freeway, before the chase, before the gunshots and traffic. You gotta dig into where these two came from, the blocks that molded them, the people they stood beside, and the choices that built them into the men they became.
Well, after we did the interview with you, I interviewed Mo3.
Who?
Mo3.
I don't know who that is.
Okay. Well, I asked about the shooting, and he said there's no beef, but he said you just gotta stay out the way. It's real out here.
This whole saga didn't just spark overnight. It grew from pressure, pride, and a rivalry that started over something way smaller than anyone could have predicted. And once that fire was lit, Dallas was never the same again. Nobody could deny the weight behind Yella Beezy's name, born as Marquise DeAndre Conway, a kid molded by the trenches of Oak Cliff, a place where the pavement feels heavy with stories, victories, and scars that never fully fade. Oak Cliff raises people who know how to survive, but it also tests them in ways outsiders could never understand. And Beezy grew up right in the middle of that pressure cooker. His whole life shifted when tragedy hit home in the most brutal way. His pops was taken out inside their own spot on Mother's Day, leaving him at just 12 with a pain no kid should ever experience.
Yeah, nah, they was misinformed about some rap beef, and I was like, nah, I ain't got no rap beef with nobody. I ain't got no rap beef with no rapper in my city. No rap beef. Do you see somebody running down the street?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
Okay. So you're saying that all of that is just nonsense?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Internet be reaching.
That kind of trauma ages a person, instantly forcing you to see the world through a colder lens, realizing quick that safety is an illusion, and you got TA stay sharp every second just to make it to the next day. That moment didn't just hurt him, it shaped him. While the block kept blasting that gritty southern trap sound, and the neighborhood kept dealing with daily storms, Conway found his lifeline in music, something pure, something that didn't judge him. By 9, he was already scribbling rhymes, using those lines like a private place to dump the pain he couldn't say out loud. This wasn't about fame or trying to impress the streets. This was straight survival. Therapy through a notebook, a way to stay solid without letting anyone see the cracks underneath. As he grew into his late teens and early 20s, those hidden notebooks turned into something sharper, something focused. He hit Dallas's underground scene with hunger, dropping tracks, sharpening his craft, and slowly building a rep.
Now, here's the thing. I gotta believe if Mo3's in this vehicle, I gotta believe that MO3, it doesn't really feel like he's that much in danger or that this person is trying to kill him. You get what I'm saying? And the reason why I gotta believe that is that the dude passes him. MO3 could have slowed down. Let's say the guy's going 60. Reduce your speed to 30.
And when he stepped out with the name Yella Beezy, a nod to his complexion and the buzz he was creating, it felt like the city finally started. Noticing the kid who had turned pain into persona loss into drive and raw emotion into a voice the streets couldn't ignore, Beezy's energy hit the streets like a surge, the kind of flow that made people stop what they were doing just to run it back. His early tapes carried that raw Texas trap vibe, gritty, steady, and honest. The type of sound that only someone who lived a life could deliver. His voice painted pictures of real struggles, real ambition, and real survival. And the people who grew up in that same world felt it instantly. Then the come-up really cracked open. Beezy dropped tracks that blended catchy hooks with war stories from the pavement, and Trappin' Designer turned into one of those undeniable Dallas anthems. It was everywhere. Clubs, parking lots, cookouts, late-night rides, and folks were spitting the lyrics without even realizing they had memorized every line.
I'm not having a standoff in the middle of the highway. I'm keep driving. I'm flooring it, right? I'm keep flooring this bitch, okay? But MO3 actually stops, but it appears MO3 must have been under the assumption, oh, this pussy nigga is playing with me. Maybe recognize the guy or recognize the car. And he's like, let me go get my chopper.
That buzz was too strong to ignore, and it caught the attention of Hiko Entertainment, backed by the legendary LA Reid. Pushing Beezy straight into the Major League arena where money was thicker and the pressure doubled overnight. From there, his rise felt unstoppable. Every new release hit radio, playlists, and social feeds, and That's On Me became the track that really stamped his name nationwide. It proved he could deliver something that shook the streets and still hit mainstream enough to run in rotation everywhere. Big features came fast. Chris Brown on Restroom Occupied, Lil Wayne on Hit, and Gucci Mane on Back at It Again. Those collabs didn't just boost his name. They showed the whole industry that Beezy wasn't just a Texas star anymore. He was stepping into the national spotlight with momentum too strong to ignore.
That state's witness will also testify that Marquise Conway was one of the individuals responsible for a portion of that payment. The state's witness will also testify to the individual who would receive this payment. The state's witness will testify that Keywan White was, in fact, the individual to receive this payment, who was originally indicted in State's Exhibit Number 1.
Each major collab took Yella Beezy's name further, spreading his presence across the country and locking him in as one of the main voices pushing the modern trap sound. When he spoke about his sudden success in an interview, he admitted he never expected his breakout record to take off the way it did. It was moving faster than anything he ever imagined, like the whole world suddenly tuned into his frequency. But behind that fast rise, Beezy's journey wasn't smooth at all. His growth from a nervous kid with a dream to a confident industry mover came with bumps, setbacks, and pressure from every direction. Drama kept trailing him, sometimes from the streets he grew up in, sometimes from the spotlight itself. Legal trouble, especially those gun-related situations, kept painting him as someone molded by his surroundings. A person forced to move a certain way depending on which side of the city you looked at. His life was a mirror of the environment that raised him, and the world didn't always understand his choices. Now we slide over to North Dallas, a whole different atmosphere, but the same survival energy pumping through the blocks.
The state has also had an opportunity to review bank records of the defendant, Marquise Conway. These records would show that the defendant drew $40,000 in the days following the murder of Melvin Noble. And for the record, that was a cash withdrawal. These records would correspond to the exact amount which the state's witness would testify to.
This is where another talent was building his empire brick by brick, MO3. Born Melvin Abdul Noble Jr. in McKinney, but raised in the tougher corners of North Dallas, his story ran parallel to Beezy's, but carried its own level of intensity, struggle, and raw emotion. MO3 didn't just rap, he lived every line he spit, and you could hear that truth in every track. Born in spring 1992, Noble grew up in a house where faith stayed strong and family bonds meant everything. He was active at Greater Hope Holiness Church, surrounded by people who believed in him, prayed over him, and kept him grounded even when life outside the doors was rough. North Dallas, with its mix of opportunity and hardship, shaped him into someone who didn't hide his scars. He carried his pain with him and flipped it into lyrical confessions that hit like testimony real stories. Real emotions, real truth, the kind of music that felt like he was letting the whole world read his diary while he stood firm and fearless.
Saying he pulled a certain amount of money out of his
Say
bank
he pulled
account.
out 40,000 out of his account, and I'm thinking like, that's not really that uncommon for someone like a Beezy, honestly.
Mo3 was heavily influenced by Boosie Badass, an artist known for raw truth and real-life consequences, and that energy hit Noble deep. Boosie's unfiltered honesty about the streets, struggle, and time behind bars connected with MO3 in a way that felt personal, like he finally heard someone who understood the world he came from. That inspiration pushed Noble to treat rap like an outlet, a way to release everything he carried without holding back for anyone. His early music blended smooth melodies with bold street stories that never tried to hide the pain or the reality. Mo3 wasn't here to sugarcoat anything. His lyrics were honest, emotional, and sometimes uncomfortable because they reflected what people really lived through. His 2014 mixtape Shottas sparked something serious, helping him build a loyal Dallas fan base ready to stand behind him because they felt his truth in every line. His rise didn't come from big industry pushes, it came from word of mouth. Packed local shows and performances where he left crowds frozen in place because the emotion in his voice was undeniable.
I like having cash around. Like, I'll have like, a few thousand cash just lying around just to have. I've pulled out 5, 10, 20,000, 40,000.
No, that's a fact.
I remember I bought a watch, I pulled out 70,000. Like, this happens when you have money in your accounts.
But guess what? You could have went and provided a receipt for the watch, right?
Everything shifted when he caught Boosie Badass's attention, leading to a label deal and a mentorship that instantly elevated his name beyond Dallas. Their joint album Badasmo 3 became a major moment, not just a collab, but proof that MO3 could stand bar for bar with a respected veteran and still shine. Major records like Everybody, along with aggressive diss tracks aimed at enemies, showed how versatile he really was. 1 minute pouring his heart out, the next minute sending sharp warnings with no hesitation. His range made him stand out fast. But inside Dallas's hip-hop underbelly, where ambition, loyalty, and street connections constantly clash, the tension between Yella Beezy and MO3 was slowly heating up long before the world noticed. What started as quiet competition turned into bold disrespect, tense encounters, and rumored retaliations that had the city whispering while fans refreshed their phones non-stop. This wasn't a beef born from one big moment. It was built over time, layer by layer, from small situations, ego clashes, street tension, and the harsh truth that rap battles in certain cities can turn deadly quicker than anybody expects. The tension between Yella Beezy and MO3 didn't come out of nowhere. It traced back to the early days when both were grinding in Oak Cliff and North Dallas, two areas overflowing with talent, but also loaded with territorial pride. Back then, everybody wanted the spotlight, everybody wanted their section to shine, and every move got judged by people who understood the streets better than the industry ever could. Street talk kept swirling about how the initial friction came from something small, something as petty as a shared romantic interest. But it was outside voices that really turned a tiny spark into a full blaze. That's when Roy Lee Phipps Jr. stepped onto the scene, a Dallas comedian with a sharp tongue and a reputation for roasting rappers without holding anything back. His style was raw, ruthless, and funny, but it hit nerves fast. Roy Lee started calling out Yella Beezy publicly, questioning his connection to Oak Cliff and claiming he was boosting his street image for clout. In the streets, having your authenticity questioned is serious. That's the one thing you can play with. So those viral videos cut deep and added gasoline to a growing rivalry. And because Roy Lee was tight with MO3, people instantly linked MO3 to the situation, even though he didn't start it. That guilt by association energy pulled him straight into the crossfire. Things got worse when Roy Lee reportedly pulled up on Beezy's people at a club and got jumped. Instead of backing down, he kept roasting, kept talking, kept dropping videos, almost like he refused to let it go. But then everything took a tragic turn. In late 2018 or early 2019, Roy Lee was shot in the leg in North Dallas, later passed away from complications related to blood clots, a heartbreaking loss that hit the city hard. Right after the news broke, the streets buzzed with whispers pointing at Yella Beezy, or someone close to him, saying there might have been a bag involved as retaliation, even though none of it was ever proven. But the rumors alone were enough to twist the narrative into something darker, something way more dangerous. With Roy Lee gone, Mo3 felt pressure from every direction, feeling like he had to stand up for his friend in a situation that was already boiling. And under all these public moments, deeper currents were shifting, especially with Beezy's connections to the Rollins 60s. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was sliding toward a whole different level of street politics. The city could feel the temperature rising fast. Beezy's ties to the Crips brought a whole new layer of intensity into the storyline. Because once organized street loyalty gets involved, everything changes fast. In Dallas, gang politics and rap culture overlap so closely that personal problems can quickly turn into full crew disputes, each side moving by their own codes, rules, and street laws. When those forces collide, even small grudges can turn into something explosive. One of the major turning points came in October 2018 when Yella Beezy was ambushed on the North Dallas tollway and barely made it out alive. The attack left him hospitalized and shook the city, proving this wasn't just rap drama anymore. Somebody wanted him gone. And when Mo3 was asked about the violence going on in Dallas, especially shootings involving rappers, his response carried a cold, almost casual tone. Like danger was simply part of the environment he had accepted long ago. It was chilling, almost instantly. Street whispers started connecting Mo3 to the shooting, suggesting it was retaliation for Roy Lee's death. Even though both artists publicly denied being involved, the streets didn't buy the clean version. People kept talking and the tension kept building. The energy around them felt heavier, like everyone was waiting for the next move, the next headline, the next confrontation. Then February 2020 came, and everything reached a new level inside a Dallas club. Reports claimed Yella Beezy clashed with Brandon Rainwater, MO3’s manager, and the whole thing turned into a one-sided beatdown. Rainwater walked away with a dislocated hip and later filed a lawsuit saying the situation was way more violent than anyone realized, pushed the tension even further into dangerous territory. And through all of this, both artists kept doing interviews, claiming the beef wasn't serious, pretending things were cool. But the subtle shots in their music and comments told a different story. In one exchange especially, the truth slipped through the cracks. A moment that showed the calm public faces didn't match what was happening behind the scenes, where the conflict was still very much alive and growing hotter by the day. November 11th, 2020 started off like any regular Wednesday in Dallas.com skies, cars rolling steady, people grinding for a paycheck and minding their business. Nothing in that peaceful morning hinted that the city was minutes away from witnessing one of the wildest and most shocking moments in modern hip-hop history. Around noon, Mo3 was driving northbound on I-35E near the Oak Lawn exit, a spot every so native knows stays packed with commuters, truckers, and folks just trying to get through their day. But what happened next looked like something straight out of a crime film. Dashcam footage from an 18-wheeler captured the entire situation with chilling clarity. Investigators would later call it a precision hit, planned out and carried out with zero hesitation. Out of nowhere, a dark-colored car rolled up beside Mo3's ride. And before he could react, the driver let off shots with no warning at all. Bullets sliced through the air, punched into Mo3's car, and sent him swerving across lanes as horns blasted and nearby drivers panicked in total disbelief. It was chaos instantly. Realizing he was a sitting target, MO3 made a desperate move. He ditched his car and ran on foot across the freeway, sprinting between moving vehicles while drivers slammed brakes, honked, and tried to avoid hitting him. The whole highway turned into a live nightmare, cars screeching, people ducking, the air filled with confusion and fear as traffic slowed to a crawl. But the shooter was ice cold and locked in on one mission only. Without hesitation, he jumped out of his own car and ran after Mo3 on foot, weapon drawn, moving like he didn't care about traffic, witnesses, or the danger around him. The determination, the reckless focus, the boldness, it stunned everyone who later saw that dashcam footage. This was on random. It was a full-on chase in broad daylight on one of the busiest highways in Dallas. carried out with a level of focus that sent chills through the whole city. Witnesses described a scene that felt unreal. The shooter dressed head to toe in black, face covered, moving with calm precision as he chased Mo3 across multiple lanes like he had rehearsed it. People driving by were frozen in shock, watching someone sprint for their life in the middle of freeway traffic, while the gunman followed without hesitation. Before firing the shot that ended everything, that moment hit Dallas like a gut punch. Mo3 dropped on the concrete, bleeding from several wounds, while cars slammed brakes and traffic froze completely. Chaos erupted instantly, people screaming, drivers ducking, engines idling, and first responders racing toward the scene with sirens cutting through the noise. Despite them reaching him fast, Mo3 didn't make it. He passed away at a nearby hospital within minutes, ending a career that was just getting stronger and lighting the fuse for a murder investigation that would stretch out for 5 long years. When the dashcam footage finally surfaced in court, the internet exploded. Media personalities like DJ Academics broke the clip down frame by frame, feeding millions of viewers who wanted every detail of the tragedy. The footage gave a clearer view of how everything unfolded, showing MO3 trying to maneuver away on the packed highway. Weaving through traffic like he still believed he could get out of the situation alive. That confusion, that sudden fear, it was all visible in those split seconds. Then came the heartbreaking moment the video made impossible to ignore. The instant Mo3 bailed out of his car, apparently trying to reach back into the vehicle to grab his tool and defend himself. That decision changed everything. The footage captured how fast things spiraled, how little time he had, and how quickly the danger closed in, turning the freeway into the scene of one of the most shocking killings Dallas had ever witnessed. Academics broke down that split-second decision with brutal honesty, pointing out how everything might have unfolded differently if MO3 had stayed behind the wheel and kept pushing the accelerator. Watching the footage in slow motion made the moment even heavier. It showed just how fast panic can twist judgment when danger hits out of nowhere. When police swarmed the crime scene, what they found painted a violent picture instantly. Dozens of shell casings were scattered across the freeway like metal breadcrumbs, evidence of a high-powered firearm being unleashed in rapid bursts. Investigators later confirmed the shooter used a semi-automatic weapon capable of firing fast and hard, which explained why the pavement was littered with casings and why MO3 suffered severe wounds to his back and torso. Those injuries told detectives he was running for his life when the shots hit him, a detail that added even more weight to the tragedy. Dashcam clips from passing drivers, along with highway surveillance cameras, captured pieces of the confrontation from multiple angles, each fragment giving investigators a clearer view of the chaos. The footage showed Mo3's gold sedan torn up with bullet holes, sitting crooked on the road like it had been through a war zone. Nearby, detectives found the shooter's dark-colored car abandoned after the hit, a crucial clue left behind in the rush to escape. Those visuals revealed everything: the chase, the gunfire, the calculated way the shooter moved, and how quickly the entire freeway turned into a deadly trap. With the help of these angles and timestamps, police were able to reconstruct the exact sequence of events during those frantic minutes, finally understanding how a broad-day attack unfolded right in front of stunned commuters. The fact that this went down in the middle of a major freeway during peak midday traffic showed just how bold and reckless this whole operation was. The shooter clearly wasn't worried about witnesses, cameras, or the chaos. His only focus was completing the mission, no matter how many people were watching or how risky the situation was. It sent a message across Dallas instantly. Whoever planned this hit wanted it done at any cost. The turning point in cracking the case came when investigators zeroed in on the person who actually pulled the trigger, a man named Kuen Dontrell White. At just 22 years old and already on parole, White quickly became the key suspect after Dallas PD released surveillance stills showing someone who looked exactly like him near the scene. Once the photos hit the public, the streets started talking fast, and his name kept coming up again and again. White had a jacket with firearm violations, and that history made detectives look even closer. About a month after the killing, in December 2020, police scooped him up based on tips and forensic evidence, linking him to both the getaway car and the weapon used in the attack. Everything pointed toward him being the triggerman, the one hired to do the dirty work for whoever wanted Mo3 gone. His role became clearer with every new detail investigators uncovered. At first, White was facing full murder charges, but the situation shifted when he agreed to a deal. Prosecutors offered a reduced sentence on related gun charges if he cooperated. And he took it, agreeing to serve 9 years while giving testimony about the bigger players behind the scenes. That move changed everything, because once the shooters started talking, the spotlight turned to whoever ordered the hit, and the case took an even darker turn. Devin Brown, another name tied to the alleged setup, was indicted right alongside White and Yella Beezy in 2020, accused of helping move pieces behind the scenes. Even though the exact details of his role stayed muddy and unclear, his involvement was one of those whispers floating through the city, the type of mystery that made people look twice, because nobody knew how deep he was in or how far the plan stretched. But everything shifted when the investigation pointed towards something bigger, the possibility that someone with real power had been calling the shots from afar. That's when Dallas hip-hop got hit with its biggest shock yet. Investigators turned their full attention toward Yella Beezy government name. Marquis DeAndre Conway, and that move sent waves through the entire rap scene. Beezy entered the case later, but he entered heavy, slapped with a capital murder for hire charge after prosecutors claimed he orchestrated the hit in the middle of a long-running feud. To the community, it felt unreal, a superstar now being accused of pulling strings on a deadly mission born out of years of tension and bad blood. It was the type of twist nobody expected. The investigation didn't move fast. It crawled, step by step, with detectives trying to build something airtight. When the target is a high-profile rapper with money, influence, and a massive following, law enforcement can't afford mistakes. Every detail had to be checked, verified, and lined up perfectly before any big moves were made. This wasn't just a crime, it was a full street saga stretching across years, neighborhoods, and entire crews. Dallas PD launched a massive manhunt immediately after the murder, releasing surveillance images to the public that pushed the first domino, leads pointing straight to White as the shooter. Early investigative work poured into physical evidence, shell casings, ballistics, car fragments, all pointing toward the same weapon prosecutors tied to White. Witness statements helped build the timeline, locking in who ran where, which cars were involved, and how the whole ambush played out. And with every detail collected, the bigger picture slowly started forming, one pointing toward a plan much deeper than just a random highway attack. After that fatal November day, the investigation slammed into a brick wall, turning ice cold for a long stretch. Detectives couldn't establish a clean motive, couldn't identify who might be bankrolling the play, couldn't connect the dots between the shooting and the deeper tension brewing behind it. There were too many rumors, too many moving parts, and too many voices twisting the story from different angles. What eventually saved the case were whispers coming straight from the trenches. Street informants who heard things the police could never see on paper. And once Q and White started cooperating, the picture shifted fast. Allegations surfaced, claiming a bag had been placed by Yella Beezy as retaliation for past violence, and all the disrespect flying between both camps. Suddenly, what looked like random chaos started to seem like a calculated mission backed by serious animosity. That kind of claim hit Dallas like a thunderbolt. The timeline stretched all the way from the murder in 2020 to the arrests in 2025 to 5 long years of detectives piecing together fragments from street talk, social circles, and half-buried digital clues. The delay wasn't accidental. Prosecutors had to match every rumor with real evidence, deal with cooperating criminals carrying their own agendas, and push through witnesses who didn't want to get involved at all. In a city where silence is a survival tactic, getting people to talk was almost impossible. Major hurdles kept slowing the case, fading memories from witnesses, missing camera footage, and digital trails that stopped halfway. But investigators kept digging, trying to separate street mythology from real facts, determined to finally uncover who played which role in a plot that shook Dallas hip-hop to its core. Witness memories fading over time created huge gaps in the story, and the quiet pressure inside the rap community kept plenty of people silent. Intimidation, loyalty, street codes, and fear, all mixing together to shut mouths fast. Proving a murder for hire case without a straight confession, without a clear money trail, and without someone outright admitting the setup is one of the hardest things prosecutors can face. And that's exactly what made this investigation so complicated and drawn out. Surveillance footage became the spine of the case against Yella Beezy, the one thing that couldn't be twisted or sugar-coated. Highway cameras captured the vehicles moving in real time, tracking the chase from lane to lane, while dash cams gave raw, uncut visuals of the actual shooting as traffic froze around them. The footage didn't lie. It showed chaos, precision, and a hit executed with zero hesitation. It became a critical piece in building the state's timeline. But the most explosive piece of evidence prosecutors leaned on wasn't T from the freeway, it came from the banks. Financial records showed that Yella Beezy withdrew $40,000 in cash shortly after the murder took place, a move prosecutors framed as a payout for the hit. That claim lit the courtroom on fire, especially when investigators tied the timing directly to the filmed withdrawal angle they brought forward. It quickly became one of the biggest talking points in the entire case. Defense attorneys shot back hard, calling it all circumstantial and saying there was no hard proof the cash was tied to anything criminal. But prosecutors countered by pointing out that bank security cameras standard in every major branch likely recorded the whole transaction. That footage, though never released to the public, was reportedly subpoenaed to verify the date, the amount, and Beezy's presence at the bank. Investigators kept it sealed to protect the integrity of the ongoing case, but its existence alone added major pressure. Phone records made things even tighter. Digital logs showed communication between Yella Beezy and Quan White around the time of the murder, with cell tower pings placing their devices in close proximity in the days before and after MO3’s death. It wasn't a smoking gun by itself, but it was enough to raise eyebrows, especially combined with the cash withdrawal, the surveillance footage, and the long-running feud between both camps. This murder didn't happen out of nowhere. Detectives believed it was the peak of a long, complicated pattern of violence, ambushes, disrespect, and street politics between two sides that had been clashing for years. The hit on the freeway was just the latest chapter in a deeper story that was finally being pieced together, one detail at a time. Connections to Roy Lee's 2019 death rumored to be tied to people around. Yella Beezy, as retaliation for his viral roasts, started fueling theories that this whole situation was part of a revenge cycle, spinning completely out of control. Every new piece of info made the streets whisper louder, and every whisper pushed both camps deeper into a feud that felt bigger than music. The assault on Brandon Rainwater inside that Dallas club only added more gasoline to the fire, especially after the lawsuit hit, and the bad blood between both sides grew even heavier. People in the city believed the October 2020 shooting that targeted Yella Beezy was MO3’s retaliation, another step in the back-and-forth pattern that had been playing out for years. It looked like a tit-for-tat war, where every move demanded a counter-move, and each strike made the streets more convinced that someone was eventually going to pay the ultimate price. By the time MO3 was killed, it felt like the cycle had reached the point of no return. As the case crawled toward trial, the pile of evidence, even if a lot of it was circumstantial, started forming a picture prosecutors believed showed planning, motive, and a straight-up murder-for-hire setup. They claimed this wasn't random, wasn't impulsive, and wasn't just beef. It was a coordinated hit born out of years of anger, disrespect, and street politics. And once that narrative hit the courtroom, Dallas knew the spotlight was about to burn brighter than ever. The city, the hip-hop world, and even true crime watchers across the country were locked in, waiting to see what the next reveal would be. Then came March 2025, the moment everything shifted. More than 4 years after MO3 was gunned down on I-35E, the Dallas County Grand Jury officially indicted Yella Beezy on capital murder-for-hire charges. Love to Texas law, that SA first-degree felony elevated specifically because prosecutors claimed money changed hands to make the deadly plan happen. The announcement shook the entire Dallas rap scene. Because this wasn't T-rumor anymore. This was the justice system saying they believed Beezy was the mastermind behind one of the most shocking killings the city had ever seen. The murder itself wasn't T in question anymore. What shook the whole city was the claim that Conway put a bag on MO3’s head, hiring Quan, Dontrell White, to carry out the hit as revenge for years of street tension that kept snowballing. Prosecutors argued Beezy wanted the feud ended permanently, and White was the one chosen to make it happen. Alongside him, Devin Brown caught his own indictment for allegedly helping set up the operation, pushing the case deeper into conspiracy territory that had Dallas buzzing. Court schedules moved slow and messy, just like every high-profile murder case where the stakes are sky-high. The first trial date was supposed to be April 2025, but that got pushed back after both legal teams demanded more time to dig through evidence, challenge filings, and run pretrial motions. Every delay added pressure, every extension added speculation. And eventually, a new date landed. February 2nd, 2026 for Conway, while Brown's trial got stamped for November 2025. These dates showed just how serious the charges were, with potential life sentences hanging over everyone's head. Nobody wanted to walk into that courtroom unprepared. Pre-trial hearings turned into full-on battles. Lawyers clashed over what evidence could be shown to a jury, which witnesses could take the stand, and even what details could be spoken out loud without jeopardizing the case. Every motion felt like a chess move, each side trying to get an edge before the real fight even began. One wrong ruling could twist the entire direction of the case, so the tension in those hearings was thick. Bond hearings became some of the most heated moments in the whole legal war. Prosecutors argued hard that Yella Beezy shouldn't be released under any circumstances, not with capital murder for-hire charges on the table. After he was booked in mid-March 2025, the judge hit him with a massive $2 million bond. A number of prosecutors defended fiercely by highlighting his financial resources, his industry connections, and what they saw as a real risk of him disappearing before trial. They claimed a man with money, status, and that much pressure on his shoulders might try to escape rather than face a potential life sentence. Defense lawyers fired back, but every time the issue came up, the courtroom crackled with tension. This wasn't just about freedom. It was a preview of how intense the real trial was going to be once all the evidence, accusations, and street history finally hit center stage. During a major March 27, 2025, hearing, the judge made a huge call, dropping Conway's bond from $2 million down to $750,000 after defense. Lawyers stressed his community roots, family responsibilities, and the fact that he had no violent priors on his record. They painted him as a man with deep ties to Dallas, someone who wasn't running from anything. But prosecutors weren't teasing up for a second. They came prepared to lay out their case with sharp precision, revealing exactly how they planned to connect every piece of the puzzle once trial day hit. Inside that courtroom, a state attorney stepped up and dropped a bomb on everyone listening. They announced the existence of a star witness, someone ready to testify and tie Yella Beezy directly to the alleged murder-for-hire operation. This witness, according to prosecutors, was the missing link. The one person who could bridge all the gaps and turn scattered evidence into a clear, damning narrative. The moment that detail was mentioned, the whole room felt the shift. Then came the next shock, the financial evidence. Prosecutors called it the cornerstone of their entire case, the piece they believed would lock everything in place and prove Beezy's involvement beyond doubt. They claimed the money trail told the real story, and once jurors saw it, everything else would finally make sense. At the center of their argument was a breakdown of evidence that took detectives years to build. The financial transactions were the backbone, bank records showing that Conway withdrew $40,000 in cash just days after MO3 was killed. Prosecutors insisted this wasn't coincidence, wasn't random, and wasn't harmless. They argued it was payment for the hit. That number instantly turned into one of the most talked about details in the entire case. Defense attorneys pushed back, arguing that rappers with money withdraw large amounts all the time for business, investments, personal bills, anything. But prosecutors tied this withdrawal directly into what they called the film transaction. Angle routine bank surveillance footage, showing Conway making the cash pull at the exact time investigators expected. That footage was subpoenaed to verify the timestamp, the amount, and the identity of the person handling the withdrawal. Even though the video was never released publicly, prosecutors made it clear they viewed it as visual proof the moment Yella Beezy allegedly accessed the money they say was meant to pay for the hit. And once that detail entered the courtroom conversation, everything about the case felt heavier, darker, and way more serious, as if the financial trail had just become the prosecution's smoking gun. Prosecutors labeled that withdrawal as highly suspicious, pointing to it as one of the biggest red flags in the whole case. But the explosive part wasn't just the money, it was the witness testimonies, especially from White, who took a plea deal on lesser charges and agreed to testify in exchange for a lighter sentence. Prosecutors hyped his role as potentially case-defining, claiming he had direct knowledge of conversations about the bounty and payment. He alleged he was hired specifically by Yella Beezy's camp to handle the hit on MO3. Turning his testimony into the centerpiece of the state's strategy, Digital evidence backed up parts of White's claims. Phone logs showed communication between Conway and White within 24 hours of the murder. And cell tower pings placed their devices unusually close during the critical time window. Prosecutors argued this wasn't coincidence. They said it was coordination. They painted a picture of two men moving in sync around the same stretch of time. MO3 lost his life, trying to make the timeline look airtight. But Conway's defense team didn't let any of that slide. They attacked the prosecution's narrative from every angle, claiming the entire case was built on assumptions, rumors, and circumstantial scraps. They stressed that the 4-year delay in bringing charges showed how weak the evidence really was. No explicit texts plotting a murder, no wire transfers proving payment, no receipts tying Conway to a bounty, just phone logs, street whispers, and a witness trying to save himself. They went hard at White's credibility, highlighting his long criminal record, his desperation for a reduced sentence, and his massive incentive to say whatever prosecutors wanted. The defense called him unreliable, biased, and motivated more by self-preservation than truth. They pushed the idea that his word alone shouldn't carry this much weight, especially in a case this serious. Even figures from the hip-hop world weighed in. Industry insider and street politics commentator Wack 100 gave a detailed breakdown in an interview, openly questioning the strength of the prosecution's argument. He pointed to major weaknesses, especially the claim that the cash withdrawal was a smoking gun. Wack argued that wealthy rappers pull large amounts of cash all the time, for everything from business expenses to personal investments, and said, assuming it was proof of murder, for hire sounded shaky at best. His skepticism added even more doubt into a case already filled with contradictions. This back and forth made the courtroom battle feel like a heavyweight fight. Prosecutors swinging with timelines and money trails, and the defense firing back with credibility attacks and gaps big enough to raise real questions. Wack 100 broke down why the financial angle by itself felt shaky, explaining in detail that a cash withdrawal, even a big one, was in T strong enough to prove murder on its own. He said prosecutors were facing an uphill battle, because convincing a jury that pulling out money automatically equals hiring a hitman would require airtight evidence they simply didn't have. His breakdown made plenty of people take a second look at how much weight the state was really putting on that bank transaction. Meanwhile, Conway managed to post his $750,000 bond and walked out under heavy restrictions. He was placed on strict house arrest with GPS monitoring strapped to him 24/7, along with orders to stay far away from witnesses, co-defendants, and anyone tied to the case. The court didn't want even a hint of tampering or influence. Every move he made was watched closely. Then in early November 2025, the judge approved a rare modification. Conway could leave his home for 5 hours a week to hit the studio and record music under controlled conditions. His legal team argued that music was the only way he could earn a living, and blocking him from working would cause severe financial harm. They cited similar rulings from other high-profile defendants in the industry, and the court ultimately agreed. It was one of the few small wins Beezy's side picked up as the case moved forward. This entire situation mirrored other tragic moments in hip-hop history. Beefs that started with words, spiraled through streets, and eventually turned fatal. Careers cut short, families grieving, and whole cities caught between music and madness. The MO3 case became another chapter in a pattern the culture has struggled with for decades. A reminder of how fast things can go from tension to tragedy when pride, loyalty, and the streets collide. If you made it this far into the story, thanks for tapping in. This case is far from over, and the courtroom battles ahead are guaranteed to shake the entire rap world again. Make sure you subscribe, drop a comment, and hit that like button so more people can join the conversation. And if you want to keep diving into the wildest hip-hop cases and street stories, click one of the videos on your screen right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next.